like to welcome everyone to the City of Madison Planning Commission regular scheduled meeting for Monday, May the 10th. Could we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Daryl Henderson?
Here.
Mike Armstrong? Here. Carl Egan?
Here.
Patrick Chapman?
Here.
Jerry Ralston?
Here.
Josh Wilbur? Jeff Kernan?
Here.
Dan Kraft?
Here. Everyone received a copy of the April 12th meeting minutes. If there's no additions or corrections, I'd accept a motion to approve.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the April 12th meeting.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First application tonight is Warren Watson, the petition to amend the final plat as to combine, I'm not gonna read the parcel numbers, of the 3 parcels. The applicant plans on building a 30 by 30 foot pole barn on the combined lots at 31 South, 31 Plus South, and 40 South Oak Drive, zone residential R4. Wayne, we need to get you to come forward if you could. I know it's pretty self-explanatory, but just tell us what need your name and address, and tell us what you're doing there.
Warren Watson,
Yeah.
31 South Oak Drive, Hanover, Indiana.
Basically, just combining 3 lots in order to be able to build a pole.
In order to build a 30 by 30 pole.
You're on the very edge of the 2-mile buffer, so
Yeah.
you got drawn into Madison.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Watson, this is not going to be a commercial operation. This is just to be for your personal use.
Just storage, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience to speak for or against? Seeing none, I would accept the motion.
I move to approve Mr. Watson's application as submitted.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call vote?
Daryl Henderson?
Yes.
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
Carl Egan?
Yes.
Patrick Chapman?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Jeff Kernan?
Yes.
Dan Kraft?
Yes.
Thank you, folks. Okay, the second application tonight is Diego's Mexican Grill setback requirements for the construction of a 42 by 16 foot patio roof and in general business zoning. The applicant is requesting a 54 and 3.5 inch setback from the east property line, a 62 and 11 inches and 11.25 inches setback on the south lot line, and an 81 foot and 3/4 inch setback on the west lot line at 2455 Lanier Drive, zone general business. Someone here to represent, get you to come forward. Just give us your name and address and.
My name is Ruben Portillo. I'm part owner at Diego's Mexican Grill.
Okay. And basically, it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's the first application I ever seen by the 1/4 of an inch. So.
Pretty precise.
Any questions from the board?
The patio exists already, right, sir?
Yes, sir.
Just putting a roof
Just
over the
roof over
existing
the
building?
top, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience to speak for or against? Seeing none, I would accept the motion.
Make a motion that we accept the application as it's drawn up.
Second for the.
Do we have a motion and a second? Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Daryl Henderson?
Yes.
Mike Armstrong?
Yes.
Carl Egan?
Yes.
Patrick Chapman?
Yes.
Jerry Ralston?
Yes.
Jeff Kernan?
Yes.
Dan Kraft?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The next application is Bar Development LLC, a rezoning application in order to change the proposed address from heavy manufacturing M2 zoning to low density residential R4 zoning to low density R4 zoning, okay. And at 488 West Hutchison Lane, zone heavy manufacturing M2 and low density residential R4. And who is here to represent them? Peter, you're going to represent? Okay. Need your name and address and.
Yeah, I'm Peter Ellis. I'm from O'Brien and Ellis Engineering. We're doing work for Bar Development. I'm here with Greg Wine from Bar Properties. And Bar Properties is Rick Russell, who up until very recently had Midwest 2 mills. And this particular property is, I think, belonged to his wife's family. I don't know why I'm telling you that, but.
Wife's parents.
Wife's parents, yeah, okay, all right, so that's the background. The reason for the request, the property itself spans 2 sections, and if I had to guess, I would say that the city, when they did their zoning ordinance, would have taken the entirety of one section as an M2 and the other section as an R4. And R4 would have been immediately adjacent to Audubon Park. I haven't really described to you where it is. But the property actually sits at the northern extent of Cragmont Street. If you're on Clifty Drive and you turn right there where the CVS is, the city about 20 years ago extended the Cragmont Street north, and where it intersects with Hutchison Lane, I think there's a government office there at the intersection. This is the property immediately on the north side there. And Cragmont Street, like many streets, these older streets, would have run along the section line. And so that explains why the property, or actually I don't really know why the property lies in 2 sections like that, but that's what it is. So as a consequence of that, the western side, the western half of the property is zone M2. That's the side that's immediately adjacent to the city's industrial park. And M2 is a heavy industrial, I believe, that's correct. And the other side is R4, and Mr. Russell is proposing to develop the entirety of the property as a residential subdivision, very similar to Audubon Park, which adjoins it immediately to the east. So that's the basic background.
You know, it's kind of odd, the fact that in '81, when they originally started zoning, it was all farm ground back then, but somewhere along the line it probably got changed. I'm not sure when or where.
Right.
But that's,
I mean, the reason it got done that way is because it was just a lot easier to describe, and like you said, it was all farm ground, so.
exactly.
I mean, I don't know that, but I would wager.
We have another application, which I guess we'll talk about further. This is just rezoning. So at this point, is there any question from the board on the rezoning?
So item 3 is all we're looking at right now?
Yes.
Okay. And item 4 is going to be a separate discussion.
Correct.
So, Mr. Ellis, the M2 piece of this, is that an entire parcel there? Will we be splitting a lot to make that? In other words, this piece of property, he owns the whole thing.
He owns the entire thing. It is one
That
deed.
piece is M2 stands on its own, right?
No, that's what's a little bit unusual about it. It is one deed to one property.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Okay.
yeah.
One parcel, just a split zone.
That makes sense, yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It was a farm that did it for years.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? I know I think there's some neighbors out there. Anybody want to speak?
Is this
For
M2
or
as well?
against?
So
Either I'll let
that
you sit
makes
down and
sense.
we'll get.
Yeah.
some-
Well,
Will cause it more than that.
That's city.
Okay. I bet it was. That's why it was split. Thank you.
I just wanna make sure they're not trying to annex the whole thing from the city of Madison, or from the city limits to their property. They just gonna do their own property,
Correct.
that's it?
Correct.
Okay.
Name and address, Barry?
Oh, Greg Beckman, 7760 West Ramsey Creek.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ruth Shipman. So you're saying they're not gonna annex the Audubon Park area into the city of Madison once they get this all done?
I mean, everything's a possibility, but there's no intention of that at this point yet, no.
Okay, when they start the construction, how long is it gonna be while there's construction going on out there? I mean, are you talking 10 years from now before they get it done, couple
Well,
of
of course,
months?
when they do the streets and they get the lots ready, I mean, it may take 10 years to sell the lots out, but they could maybe give us an approximate on how long it would take from start to finish as far as streets and gutters, but we'll see if we can get a time limit on that.
See, that's another thing I wanna know. Are they gonna put in, they are gonna put in a street, but are they gonna put in sidewalks or lights?
That's
Sidewalk
part
lights?
of that, unless they get a variance changing it, that's part of the subdivision ordinance right now.
So they will. Because when we moved into Audubon Park, we were guaranteed sidewalks and lights, and we never have that.
Yeah, it is in the subdivision ordinance right now. If they decide not to, they have to reapply to a board, either zoning or planning, one of them, and get it changed, which probably wouldn't happen, but that's something in the future, but.
Okay, and the homes that are gonna be back there, they're gonna be homes. They're not gonna be trailers, they're not gonna be apartments, they're not gonna be duplexes.
Yep, it's R4, anything that's acceptable in R4. Some, modular homes are acceptable in R4. So, but I mean, as far as house trailers, no, I mean, single wides, no, I can't think of anything else that, you know, it's R4 and at the price it's gonna cost to put this in, I'm sure gonna want nice houses, you know, it's.
Yep, that was my other concern, is that they're not gonna be building very big, very opulent housing all back in there, and that would be, you know.
Ma'am, that will be written into the covenant of the plat plan when it's completed.
Yeah.
So maybe Mr. Ellis can enlighten us there, if you wanna let him elaborate on that. At this point, there's no preliminary or approved plat for the subdivision, so we don't really know what the covenants are gonna say. But when it's finished, it will state what the size of the homes need to be, a minimum, and whether they can have modular manufactured homes on them or whatever. That'll be stated in the covenants.
Okay, and also the duplexes where it's like two houses stuck together?
That's classified as a manufactured home, and yeah,
But
it'll
it would-
state that in there.
That wouldn't meet in R4, this is R4,
Right.
that would not meet R4, no.
Okay.
No.
Are you gonna have other meetings on this?
There will be, at this point, if we approve the next one, most of the meetings, unless they ask for something that's not in the subdivision ordinance, it would have to come back to a meeting. But anything that's in this current subdivision ordinance, which is sidewalks, lighting, they don't have to come back to any meeting, so that's in the ordinance, they have to do it.
Okay, now, at the end of Audubon Park, at the very back section, and if you've got a picture there, that road's gonna be continued into the new subdivision. I don't have a problem with that, that's way past my house. But the road that goes, we call it CVS, but it's Craigmont Street,
Correct.
that goes at dead ends there to the T. Is that road gonna go like straight and you're gonna eventually hook that into Dawson Smith?
That would be-
Because our concern is semis flying
Yeah.
through there.
That would be way in the future, I have no way of knowing that. But they'd
Well,
have to
come
buy,
on, get out
they
your
would have to
magic
buy the
ball.
ground from one of these two people, when both of them are subdivisions, so I doubt that would.
It looks like if you tried to take Craigmont Street north, you'd have to go through the drainage pond.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's. Yeah.
See, that was another concern. There's a creek that runs back there.
He's got a map there.
This is what is being proposed. In answer to your question, with respect to Craigmont
Right.
Street,
So this isn't gonna go straight out, the
that
street's gonna
is,
go over with.
that is not currently planned.
Okay.
I wanna say that we're here for an advisory, plat, so all of this is actually subject to change.
Is this a holding pond?
Yeah, yeah, detention pond for rainwater, stormwater.
Okay, because the reason I've got a question on that too, but my other question is, and it's probably for you, there is a pond back in here. There are deer back in here. There's raccoons back in here. There's a lot of squirrels back in there. What's your plan for
Wildlife.
taking out their
Well,
environment?
The honest answer is there is no plan right now. Well, I mean, we haven't really addressed that, to be honest.
Okay, well,
And there
did
may be-
you
there may be
know
good
that all
reasons
those
to-
critters were back there?
Well, we did, I am aware that there's some trees back there.
Mhm.
And we'll be talking about, yeah, there is.
We need
there's a
to,
pond
we need
back
to
there.
direct the questions to the board, so Peter, if you.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
That's
I'm
all right.
sorry.
If we get any more questions,
Can I
we'll
get a
try to
copy
get
of that?
straightened out.
All right.
Thank you. I only have one other question for the board. Down the street, down Hutchinson Lane, by our big Sangos, is that big holding pond that got put there several years ago. And the only thing they have up right now is no trespassing signs. We have repeatedly asked for a fence to go around that. Now, they've let cattails and everything grow up around that, so you can't see the pond very well. And what I'm getting at is, even last summer, there was kids that went through those cattails swimming. And my concern is safety. I'm worried about someone getting in there and drowning, and nobody's gonna know for how long, because you can't see the pond that well. So can they get it cleaned up?
That's owned by the city, and unfortunately, this board has nothing to do with it, but I would come to either a Board of Public Works meeting or a council meeting, or call, who's the councilman that was?
That's out of city limits.
Yeah, that's how the city runs.
I would call the mayor's office.
Yeah.
Okay.
265-8300.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Evening, Josh Hirschberger, Hirschberger Law Office. I represent Christian Academy Madison at 477 West Hutchinson Lane, Madison, Indiana. Not here tonight to really support or oppose this, more just trying to gain a little bit of information. And so I was wondering if perhaps Mr. Ellis might be comfortable, again, just understanding a little bit more of the plan. Generally, we have a number of students coming in and out of there. See this generally as a good development, but a couple questions, perhaps what covenants and restrictions they might expect, how many units they might have planned, houses per lot, square footage, just some general questions like that. And so I might ask if Mr. Ellis might be comfortable. I understand normally the questions are directed to the board, but on the notice it simply says changing for subdivision, so having a little more information would be helpful.
Yeah, there's actually several more meetings before, the next one's advisory, the next one here in a few minutes is advisory. But, I mean, I'm sure Peter would be glad to share copies of the plans and maybe any questions that you might have,
Yeah, this is a copy that will be submitted.
Just get the zoning piece out of the way.
Yeah.
My name's Jason Neely. My wife Amanda and I live at 3575 North Quail Drive. It's the very last house on the left on Quail Drive, so it basically is right on the boundary. And our concern, well, I have a couple too, but the drainage there as it stands right now is real bad. So, especially in the spring, and I've seen the water there get almost up to my knees.
Right.
And it does, while it does eventually go down, sometimes it takes a while. So from the email that we got, it had the map and the proposed streets and everything that we're going to go through. And so we were wondering if there was going to be anything at all addressed as far as like a storm drain or something like that, because I just kind of envisioned that if there was a street to go all the way through, that it would kind of be a dip.
Right.
So just the way it looked, because
Let me-
that field
let me
is,
Get you, we're in the rezoning part, and the next step, which is in a few minutes, is when we're talking about the preliminary for the subdivision. So let me get you to come back up then, and we'll go over this. Right now, let us get past zoning, and we'll go into advisory, which is a legal question, but I mean, it's the next step. So if we could get you to wait just a couple minutes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, any more questions on zoning? This property? Okay. No questions, no more questions from the board? I would accept a motion. And please include what we're doing here.
I make a motion, we allow Bar Development, the application to rezone this property from a heavy manufacturing into low density residential R4.
That's 488 West Hutchison.
488 West Hutchinson Lanes, yes. This is just item number 3 on our agenda.
Can we have a second?
I second that.
We have a second, can we have a roll call vote?
Darrell Henderson,
Yes.
Mike Armstrong,
Yes.
Carl Eaglin,
Yes.
Patrick Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Jerry Ralston,
Yes.
Jeff Kernan,
Yes.
Danny Kraft.
Yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda tonight is bar development and advisory hearing application on the parcel at 448 West Hutchison Lane for the development of 112 lot subdivision, total acreage 44.87. And I will explain an advisory, there isn't a vote on it tonight. The vote will come later at a final. But we'll attempt to answer all the questions we can. But again, when it's over, there is not a vote tonight. So, Peter, you want to come forward again?
Okay, yes.
We're here, proposing to develop the property that I described just a minute ago with the zoning application. It is, I believe you just stated, just a bit over 44 acres. The zoning will hopefully be R4 over the entire subdivision. I mean, we appreciate you taking action on that tonight. I don't want to repeat myself. The property, the size of the lots will be roughly very similar to the lots that you see in Audubon, or at least what we're proposing, what you see in Audubon Park right now. Audubon Park, I think when I did the arithmetic, is about 42 acres. I got that just by sizing it from the county GIS, and I believe there were 132. Greg, do you have that? 138, is that what I calculated?
You have
I think there were
42 acres and 134 lots.
Yeah, so what we're proposing is approximately 112 lots on 44 acres, so it's slightly less
An
density.
approximate size of a lot, just an average lot size in feet.
The average lot size that we have proposed on that drawing is 10,960 square feet. And the minimum lot area that is allowed by the ordinance, I believe, is 10,890 square feet.
And how
Which would
many,
be quarter acre.
how many feet by how many feet would that?
What you see on the drawings are lots that are 80 feet wide by 137 feet deep, and they front on a 50-foot street right of way. And so there is some portion of the property that would actually be reserved for stormwater facilities. Now, what I want to say when we present the plat is this is not an exact subdivision layout. We're really coming before you. We were as interested in getting the rezoning portion of the project going as anything.
Right.
Because that sometimes can be fairly involved. If we couldn't do that, we can't do.
I think Audubon Park, the houses are just a wild guess, are probably anywhere from, 1,000 square feet up to maybe 1,400 maybe, would be an average size.
I think you're probably correct about that. Oh, yeah.
So these,
okay, thank you.
these probably would be in the 1,200 to 1,400 range square feet in houses probably.
Yes, the proposal is really for small starter homes, and these aren't going to be really. I think looking at the type of housing that you have in Audubon Park, it will not be too far from that. In talking to Mr. Russell, what he's really interested and excited about is opportunity to get houses for younger people in the market. And when we look at this particular location, there is, I think the city has already designated a bike lane right there. There's Cragmont Street, which gives you really good connection to the hilltop. And if you really look at the area there, it's possible to get to a really large percentage of the industry in the area without crossing any of the state highways,
Right.
which I think is really unique. Of course, that's because we're directly adjacent to the industrial park there. But it really has potential. I think I don't see too many properties in the Madison area that really fit this nicely. I mean, we're looking at the potential of a property that can produce houses and that where you don't necessarily need to be driving back and forth. I think people probably will, but I mean, there is a potential if you're looking forward 20 years in the future, when there are more bike lanes and sidewalks and potential development on Cragmont Street.
You might explain, and because I know the question always comes up about drainage, and obviously that's between you and the engineer that's on the job, but you might explain how basically we assure the neighbors that their drainage will be hopefully better but no worse, I guess is the best way to say it. But the engineers, that's the reason you see this drainage bond is, years ago they weren't near as strict on working on drainage and basically he's eliminating 40 or 50 lots just to replace, just to put in a drainage bond, which, meets the drainage bond.
Yeah, we have designated area in here for drainage. I would like to have a little bit of space to backpedal a little bit if we oversize that.
Right.
When I did this plat, I really wanted to come up with a concept that would convey to the board what it is that we're proposing, but also convey to the owner what's reasonably possible on the property.
But it has to work.
It has to work,
The
yes.
city engineer, it has to work, and their engineer, it has to, the drainage has to work.
Well, I believe that the city is actually mandated by the federal government. I'm not,
Right.
I'm gonna be speaking out of turn now, but the city has requirements in terms with respect to stormwater, and the city's mandated to meet those requirements. And so and I was talking to the city engineer, utilities, Brian Jackson, earlier, and I believe the procedure in any prior subdivisions I've been involved with is that the city actually hires an engineer who goes and checks that our prepared stormwater plan actually meets the city's mandated requirements.
Right.
And what we will be required to do is to have a plan that does not increase basically the post-development, not basically, exactly, the post-development stormwater flow cannot exceed the pre-development stormwater flow.
And at some point, there'll be another meeting which adjoining property owners will be notified for the final.
Yes, I believe, and Brian, correct me if I'm not, if I'm incorrect, but I believe that we will come back to you with construction plans, and that's when we will go through the entire process. We will meet with the city and ask for the city utility superintendents sign off on utilities. I believe the city will. I mean, I don't know how you would do it, but generally, in the past, you've contracted with an external engineering firm to independently review the storm, because that gets to be fairly technical. At the same time, we will also, I think that you will also require us to, well, independent of whether the city requires it or not, we're required to get permitting for all utilities, the water and sewer through Indiana Department of Environmental Management. If there is any, and there is a small creek that goes through here, if we do any work that either adds or detracts from the fill in that particular area, I believe that will be considered a water of the United States, which is regulated also by actually DNR in that particular case, and we will be required to get, I believe this is 401 permit, section 401. And if there are any wetlands in the area, there'll be a 404 permit required. I believe that's what it is. And we're also required to file an erosion control plan. So there's actually a significant amount of regulatory loopholes or regulatory hoops that we need to jump through, independent of the plan commission.
Again, there'll be a final meeting on this, and it'll be a meeting where the vote is taking place, and everybody that got letters for this meeting will get a letter for that meeting. Is there any other questions at this point?
The area set aside for stormwater detention, what's the acreage as proposed on this plan?
He said that he's not gonna hold to that, right?
But as proposed.
As proposed, yeah.
As proposed, I think it's a little over 3. Well, it depends on whether are you asking me about the area that's actually shaded there?
Well, the entire area that's not platted for.
That's quite a bit of ground there. It could be as much as 8 acres. And to be really honest, we may ask to develop some of that area. I specifically accepted the farmstead there, and I think the house is in good condition, but in talking to Mr. Russell, that some of those barns there might be better developed as lots, and so I don't want to overpromise, is what I'm saying.
I know Mrs. Shipman, she had a concern too, and here on the hilltop, I don't call Walmart, we actually asked them to put in a fence around the pond, just for the safety part of it. And with younger families with kids, I think that should be something that maybe you should think about. Put in a chain link fence around it, just for the safety part of the kids in that area.
Well, that certainly is something we can do. It really depends on what kind of a stormwater detention.
Walgreens up here, the pond that is in behind that, there's a nice fence that they put up, and that was the only reason they went up, was for safety.
Right.
I think that should be part of your plan.
The problem is the maintenance of it after they build it is.
That's true.
It's been bad in most places. They let them grow up with weeds and.
Cattails, that you mentioned.
Exactly.
Those kind of things, but it's close
There-
enough to the people there that it's, you know, there's kids. If I was a kid, I'd be over there. I know that, you know, so, you know, it's right there in the subdivision. And,
Right.
I just think it should be looked at real hard. On the safety part.
I agree with you. One potential solution would be to take the detention, and I say this because this is one of the things that we've been considering, and actually split it throughout the subdivision. Instead of having a large pond there, we had initially talked about having kind of a water feature as you came in, drove into the subdivision. Sometimes that can be attractive. But I think one of the reasons we're here tonight is to get input.
Right.
I do agree that there is the possibility for that pond to both double as a utilitarian drainage pond, but also provide a nice attractive entry into the subdivision as well, if it was developed and properly at that acreage or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Anyone else in the audience have anything they want to bring up? Okay, again, there's no vote on this tonight, gentlemen. We appreciate what you told us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, the next item on the agenda tonight, anybody's welcome to leave if you don't want to listen to the rest of the agenda tonight. But the next item is Chris and Gina Lynn, a petition to amend the final plat as to combine 2 parcels into 1 parcel. Avenue plans on building a garage on the combined lots at 214 and 216 West Second Zone Historic District Residential. Who's here to represent?
Brian Martin, 104 Senior Street. I'm here on behalf of Chris and Gina.
Okay. I would like to mention that, I don't know, are there neighbors here that wrote a letter?
Yes, I believe so.
You are here, okay.
Did you also receive a second letter from the Lynn?
Yes. Okay. We'll go with questions from the board first, if there's any questions, and then we'll start with the audience.
I live next door. I don't have any information on exactly what they're looking to do, so can we have that read, please?
Okay, we can get you, basically, it's a proposed to combine the 2 lots behind the house.
But there's no details on what the garage thought process is. Is it attached to the house? Is it not attached to the house? Is it?
Like I said,
That went in front of the historic board this past month.
I
Approval on
didn't
that.
get notice for that.
Okay. Well, currently we just do, well.
Yeah, historic board only posts a green notification sign. They don't send out letters like most of our other boards. But these applicants were approved for a detached garage at the rear of the property.
okay, first I'll get questions from the board, then I'll let you come up and speak here in just a second, okay? Any questions from the board?
It's my understanding that the garage will be used as a temporary residence while the reconstruction of this property is taking place, is that?
Yeah.
It's just the use of the owners.
Yes. So the letter that the owners provided basically states that it is simply a single-family residence. That's their intent on combining the 2, because they purchased 2 separate parcels, 2 separate structures, and they're combining into 1. So the garage and small apartment unit that's part of that is all just for their own family use. And so they're, just to explain briefly, they're moving here from out of town, and so their hope is to push on the garage first, and they could stay there while the main restoration of the house continues. So yes.
And the house, as they redesign it, it will be redesigned and rebuilt to be 1.
Yes.
Rather than
Yes.
duplex.
Yes, again, that's what they're trying to do. So really, it's the combination of 2 parcels is to build this garage because it sits it would otherwise straddle that property line, but also I guess in combination they're combining the 2 the 2 parts of the duplex into 1 unit.
Would the entrance of the garage face the northwest alley or the east-west alley?
The garage doors face the north toward the comfort station, toward the backside of the comfort station, and then there's a private on the west and the north and the south side. And their intent on the garage is to put up a privacy fence eventually, so that they have a bit of a courtyard space between the garage and the house itself.
Okay.
recall, what was the size of the garage that was approved?
I'm just pulling it up now, so give me 2 seconds.
While she's looking for that, specific to the size, the garage will meet all of the current setbacks on the east and west side as far as the setbacks that are required today currently, and the garage will also sit off of the alley. I can't remember exactly, but it's easily 20 feet off of the alley as well. So,
Is it 2-story, Brian?
no, it's 1 story.
1 story?
Yes.
Two cars.
Yes.
And living quarters in there as well?
A small apartment type space on the south side of the garage, which is basically opens it to the courtyard. Again, just for, again, initially for their own, their Chris and Gina's use, but long term for extended family.
Okay. Mr. Harper, do you want to give us your, or would you rather just, I read your letter, or?
Either way works for me.
I'll let you go ahead and state a bench you're here, but that's fine.
My name is Chris Harper. My wife and I own the property at 212 West 2nd Street, which is right across the alley from these properties. So the background on this is that last year we came before this commission with the idea of combining the property which had been at 200 Hens Lane, which was subsequently partitioned into 4 parcels. 2 of the parcels were combined from the property that we owned with the property that at the time Jim Pruitt owned, and it's part of Pruitt Realty. He subsequently sold to the new owners. But as part of that deal, which was actually a deal between not only him and I, but also some other members of the neighbors in the community, we had an easement and a restriction. The easement was basically that not only did Amy Fishburne basically get land, a parcel of land, she also got 2 foot of easement on the west side of the portion of the property that was combined with 216. And aside from that, there was also a deed restriction. As part of the sale of the property, we put a deed restriction that 214 could no longer be a 3-unit rental, which it was before. Actually, both 214 and 216 were both 3-unit rentals. They would now have to be a single-family, owner-occupied residence. Both of those things were agreed to as part of the sale, and when it was advertised, that it was well known, that was a deed restriction on the property. So in coming before the commission, I just want to make sure that the agreement that we put forward, that the commission's aware of that there was an easement, there was a deed restriction, and that as we combine these properties, those things, are still in place. I don't know how that impacts thinking. In general, we are in favor of what they're trying to do. We like the development. One of the things we were hoping for is one of the reasons I sold the property in the
But
first place.
if they, basically you're saying this apartment in the garage is for their family, and can't be sold as a separate, it can't be rented, can't be whatever. I mean, it's a part of the single-family residence.
That's right. That's the way we look at it, because it's part of the property. It's all part of the 214 parcel. They're going to build that on there. Now, half of it might be sitting on 216, but from my perspective, it's like, well, when you combine the two, you're basically applying the restriction across all of them. That's the way I'm thinking about it, unless you guys tell me it's different.
Let this lady speak.
So my name is Amy Fishmer. I actually live directly next door at 218 West 2nd. As he just told you, I had an easement across the back of that property, And through the sale and the negotiation with the realtor that had owned it previously, Mr. Pruitt, I forwent my easement that went across the back of the property for an easement on that went back towards the alley. So I wanna make sure that I don't lose my easement in that, and with that, I also, when we came before the board, and we talked about, the building restrictions of that easement, I wanna make sure that they're not building right on top of my easement. I don't want it to butt up against that easement. That restricts the access to the back of my home, and such. So, that's my concern. And I'm a bit extremely concerned since I wasn't notified of the size of this garage or any details of this garage, and it's also not posted on any of the things on the front of their house. But they have the other stuff posted. It doesn't mention anything about the size of these or that it was going before the historic board either.
The easement that you have,
Yes.
I'm just trying to picture this, so it is, you said a 2-foot easement?
It's a 2-foot easement, so
Does it run east or
it
north?
north and south.
Okay.
So our properties have a walking alley between them. So it's all, basically the portion between our homes is a concrete area actually. And so that actually divides right down the middle. My other concern is if they're not fully aware of these aspects. I know that they've had it surveyed and all of that, but just in the process of them having their home gutted, they're not really taking my portion of that property into consideration at this point in time. So I just want to make sure that it's clear to them where the boundaries are for them to be able to build in this area.
Well, easement is a legal agreement, and
Correct, and I understand it's a non-building easement, but I also want to make sure that the right-of-ways of the home or the garage where they can't just build directly on top of right up against the easement. I know that we've never.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think they can't.
They can't build on the easement.
Not on
Okay.
it, but they can build against the easement, correct?
Up to it.
Up to it.
That's my concern, because if they build up to it, I had a 3-foot easement, and I had an agreement with Mr. Pruitt to take it down to a 2-foot easement, because it's on the section of the property that's in the back portion, it's not through the whole property. But
So it doesn't go all the way to the
It
east-west
goes,
alley?
it goes from the alley up 10 feet through my parking area. And then I believe another additional 2 feet into the property line, into the grass area. So it
So
doesn't
you have
go
a
all the way up.
Does your property go all the way back to the alley?
Yes, both of our properties go all the way back.
Okay.
Now that we bought the property.
Right, I have a picture of this because the easement's not shown on our sketch that we were given. That would help me to visualize what she's talking about.
Yeah, you wanna explain to them?
Yeah, I'm like, this is where the easement is.
It does not,
So this is my home here. So the easement. Yes. I was gonna say, that's why I was confused. Thank you, that's why I was confused.
Is this your easement?
This is my property, this is my easement over here, and it is not on this line. So it's an additional over here,
On
their lot.
2 feet,
2 feet onto their lot.
yes.
And how far does it extend forward
It
towards
goes
Second
up
Street?
2 feet this way.
Okay, so just right beyond your boundary
Yes.
line where your parking area is, and it goes this way?
Yes,
Correct, okay.
yes.
So if their garage was 2 foot this way, you'd be okay with that?
As long as it's not, I don't want it built right on the line.
Yeah, they've
Right.
got setbacks they have to maintain.
That's
for
what I wanna
zoning.
make sure that this is part of the
What's your,
zoning, is that
what's
we're
your
not.
west setback line?
yeah, 3-foot setback, so,
Okay.
I mean, 2 foot's easy,
Yeah,
we're not,
you're
we're
good.
a foot
All right,
Okay.
so we good then?
That's what I wanna, that's my concern and what I wanna make sure, and then I also wanna make sure that they're aware of the easement and that stuff exists, because like I said, I'm not sure that they're completely aware.
They will be?
yes,
Okay.
oh yeah.
Okay.
And there, yeah.
Okay, and they're aware that obviously the previous restrictions about being a
Yeah,
single
but
family,
instrument 20,
not being a
20,
rented out.
30, 40.
That was actually,
Matter of fact, I should.
that was actually in the, listing of the property in the books, so hopefully they did know that.
They are well aware of that because it's stated specifically in the deed.
Yes. And so my easement should also be stated in the deed, but I'm not sure that it was.
But I have a letter from them explaining that they won't do that, but I mean, I don't think there's any point reading it. I think they know that's.
So what is the size of the garage that they're planning on putting there?
Brian, can you answer that?
I don't want to misspeak, but it's probably approximately 27 by 42, but I can get you exact.
And see, that wouldn't fit mathematically, because they only have 20 feet east to west. They were set in 10-foot lots when we bought them. On that back portion,
No, their lots are
They
not
aren't?
21.
You and Michelle
It's
got 10
39
foot,
and a half feet.
and they got,
Yeah.
because the whole time was 60.
okay, never mind.
This states
My
39 and a half
mistake,
feet.
yes, okay.
yes.
30
Alright.
foot wide, yeah.
Okay, that was my other concern that I wanted to make sure.
And you said his setback to the west is 3 feet, so that
Yes,
will not be on your easement.
okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Should be good.
Any other questions? No questions? Any other questions from the board? You would accept a motion?
I move that we approve the application from Chris and Gina Lynn to amend the final plat so as to combine parcel 39-13-02-213-049-001-007 and parcel 39-13-02-213-049-000-007 into one parcel.
I will second his motion, but I will not reread all that.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Daryl Henderson,
Yes.
Mike Armstrong,
Yes.
Carl Eaglin,
Yes.
Patrick Tevenoff,
Yes.
Gerald Ralston,
Yes.
Jeff Kernan,
Yes.
Dan Crafton.
Yes.
I believe that's all we have tonight. Is there any new or old business? Anything, Brian? Nothing? Nope. Nothing, Nicole? I didn't mention our two board members. I think it's the first meeting they made, Mike Armstrong and Dan Crafton. Welcome to the board. Thank you. You can't miss any meetings. This is my 26th year and I haven't missed a meeting. Everybody's got to keep up with that.
Got a lot of hard act to follow, all of that.
I take a motion to adjourn.
With all that, I make a motion with adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Hey, Darryl. Can I get you that? Just your signature.
This was mild. With it, all right. That's all. You see,
Meetings that I was in.
good job.
Process, you know.
Time to go.
Hi, how are
You
you?
work all the time, you guys.
Yeah.
You official recorder.